What's up, guys? Gaonan here, and welcome to our new series, Coaching Towards Masters. I'm starting this series because when I started playing Eternal, I had no limited knowledge, and the only way for me to learn was by trial and error and learning from various content sources like streams and articles. This led to my journey towards Masters and being able to consistently hit Masters draft a long one. I'm confident that with one-on-one personalized coaching, I can help players reach their ultimate goal of consistently hitting Masters draft faster than if they were doing it on their own. So if you are in a situation where you need help with your drafting, please contact me to discuss rates. I am open to just coaching the draft portion if that is all you think you need help with. You can find my contact information on the screen now and below the video. Finally, when I hit 250 YouTube subscribers, I raffled off a free coaching session, but I haven't been able to contact the winner. So if you are Nick Mose, shown on the screen, or Gunshul, please contact me so we can set up this free coaching session. I hope you guys enjoy this new idea, this new series. And today I have Patomaru, and he's from the Farming Eternal podcast, which is another draft-focused content within the Eternal community. And he's going to help me do this very first coaching session so that people can see what it would be like to do a coaching session with me. So Pat, how about you give everybody your background a little bit?
Okay, so my background in Eternal is I've been playing since set 3. I came from Hearthstone, I guess, indirectly. I kind of stopped playing card games for a while due to time constraints, and then didn't really want to get back into Hearthstone and found Eternal, and I've been really loving it. As far as drafting goes, I've drafted a little bit of Magic here and there over the years, but never very seriously, and after finding Eternal, Limited has been my favorite format and the format that I'm focusing on getting better at. Eternal's a really great opportunity to play Limited and to get better at drafting in general. I'm really excited that you invited me on to this. Like you said, I do the Farming Eternal podcast, which makes it seem like I'm very good at draft, but it was mostly an excuse to get better at draft. So I asked my co-host Barefoot Farmer, who, if he wanted to do a podcast with me, and it turns out he's a really good player. So our podcast, I think, will be in a very similar form to this, where I ask a lot of questions and let the people who know a little bit more about draft, because I think I have a pretty good foundation in drafting, because as the title of our podcast, Farming Eternal, might imply, I'm actually a farmer, and so I have a lot of time to listen to podcasts. So I listen to a lot of Magic content without actually playing any Magic. So that's the basis of my draft knowledge. So I feel like I have the fundamentals of drafting down well. It's just the details I think I sometimes struggle with.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm a listener of the podcast, so I know you guys are producing good content, and I'm enjoying listening to your guys' episodes. I think I say this pretty often on my Drafting with Masters episodes, but I don't think there's always one right answer in draft, and that's what I enjoy about it so much. Just kind of going back to my journey in Eternal Limited as someone coming into this game with no limited experience before. I think it's very doable for anybody that wants to hit Masters to do so. Yes, it's going to take time. Yes, it's going to take work, hence the name of Coaching Towards Masters. It's not going to happen overnight. You do have to put in the work, but like you said, if you have the fundamentals down, you can learn the nuances of formats and things like that that'll help you get those extra percentage points to get you towards Masters. So, is there anything special you're looking to get out of today's session?
Yeah, I guess we had spoke a little bit about talking about my weaknesses in draft. And I think there's a couple things that came to mind when we had talked about it. I think I'm pretty good at just evaluating cards on their own. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I struggle with drafting is drafting a deck. Do you know what I mean? Like I can draft a good pile of cards.
Right.
But oftentimes I find I sort of lose focus on the deck and end up not ever drafting towards a deck. So that's one of the things that I'm constantly trying to improve.
Yeah.
And I talked about this recently in the podcast, but I think in the last couple of weeks, the meta of this draft has shifted a little bit. And I've found that I was doing pretty well a couple weeks ago. And then recently, it seems like how I've been approaching this format hasn't been working as well. So just maybe getting, talking through this draft and maybe getting an idea of what I should be looking for and what has changed would be very helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you described actually is pretty common as far as the card evaluation piece of it. I think a lot of people use tier lists as crutches to help their card evaluation. And this leads to some of kind of what you're describing of not being able to come up with a coherent deck at the end of the day because we're so focused on drafting the most powerful card in a vacuum, but we're not taking into account those other cards that we've already drafted. So that's a really good thing to work on, and I think probably a very important skill to have. So I think that'll be a good focus, and we'll kind of work through that as we go through the draft. And you mentioned also the format maybe shifting a little bit, that you were having success earlier and not having as much success now. So hopefully just gaining a new perspective, looking at cards differently than you have before, or, pivoting at times when you wouldn't have, or not pivoting when you would have in the past, can help with some of that too. So yeah, this should be a great episode. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Hey, I just had a one quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Where are you on splashes, and have you drafted a lot of like 3-color splash a fourth kind of decks, or are you trying to focus on 2 colors and a splash, or 3 colors?
This is a really good question because this format in particular is different from past formats in that you're encouraged to draft 3 factions because some of the most powerful cards in the newest set are in that 3 faction wheel. However, what has led me to have success this season was mostly streamlined 2-color decks, splashing some of those very powerful third colors. So anytime you see displays or anything like that, potentially splashing for those, I think if you get a more streamlined, focused deck, you're more likely to have success. Also, just as a drafter, I tend to be risk averse. So sometimes when I have an option between a more powerful card that I might be able to splash versus something that is on color, on plan, I will usually pick the on color, on plan, unless it's just a free splash and this is like something bomb that I don't think I can pass. So I tend to stay in my 2-color lane and just go very lightly outside. I'll be honest, last month I struggled mightily in this draft format. I did 25 drafts and didn't reach Masters, and that was the first time I hadn't reached Masters in probably over a year. And reflecting back now on it, after reaching Masters in 8 drafts this month, I looked back at some of my drafts from the last month and thought, okay, I think I'm going too far into 3 colors. I didn't focus enough on just being in 2 colors and lightly splashing that third when possible. Or I was kind of kidding myself and saying, oh, yeah, this looks reasonable and good, when really it didn't end up being a good deck at all. At the end of the day, I tend to be in 2 factions and then very lightly splashing a third for those very powerful cards that really make a difference for you.
All right, so this is pack one, pick one, and I think it's a really strong pack. So I think I would just pick Siegebreaker, but I'm also excited to see a Frostwave Mighty Strikes and fall short.
Yeah, I think Siegebreaker is by far the strongest card. Even though it's double influence, paying 4 for a 6/5 is crazy good. This format's pretty removal light, so sometimes a 6/5 can just run away with the game. I do like Frostwave quite a bit. I like Mighty Strikes too. I would put Fall Short beneath both of those. I don't like fall short as much because a lot of times it doesn't hit the unit you really want it to, like a flyer or something with overwhelm. I think Siegebreaker, Mighty Strikes, and Frostwave are probably what you should be looking for here. And I think at the end of the day, I would just pick Siegebreaker.
I think Siegebreaker is an obvious first pick, especially because recently, not to great success, but I've been trying to focus. I've been drafting more fire because people seem to be having success with it.
All right, what do you think about here?
Pick 2. The rare was passed, and so someone picked an uncommon over it. And I'm not really against Temple Captain, and I do have a slight rarity bias. So I think for me, it'd be between Temple Captain, Lethrai Hideaway, and Mighty Strikes again. And I might just take Temple Captain, thinking that people might be passing me a lot of time cards.
I don't think Temple Captain is super impactful. A 5/5 overwhelm for 6. If you compare that to Coastal Beastmaster, which is obviously a very strong card, but that's a 5/5 overwhelm for 5 with
Right.
additional upside on top of that. So I'm
Yes, and
not.
probably better upside than Temple Captain.
Oh yeah, I would agree. Better upside than Temple Captain, but it's still not a slouch of a card. It is interesting that the person ahead of us didn't take the rare and that time will be open the rest of the pack, but it's pretty early to say anything like that. And then I agree with you. I think Lethrai Hideaway and Mighty Strikes are both reasonable picks here, too. My only knock against Hideaway would just be that it would potentially put us in a unsupported 3-faction triplet. So I would probably lean towards Temple Captain and Mighty Strikes. I think if you take Temple Captain, by no means are you like locked into Praxis, but you do have 2 double influence cards at that point, so you would definitely
Yes.
want to be base Praxis if we did go that way. And then Mighty Strikes is just kind of solid card, great finisher still, even after the nerf. I guess I would take Temple Captain just because I feel like that could be a strong indication that the person ahead of us is not interested in time, but
Right.
it's hard to say because we don't know what card they took. I feel like time will likely be open as the packs go on if they're willing to pass up the Temple Captain. Could just be that they liked the uncommon more than Temple Captain and that this isn't a signal for time at all. But
So shall we pick Temple Captain?
yeah, I think let's try the Temple Captain and kind of see where the draft takes us.
All right. In this pack, there's another Lethrai Hideaway, an Oni Forge Master, and a Mighty Strikes again.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if I was feeling disciplined, I would take Oni Forge Master, and if I was feeling like 3 Mighty Strikes in a row was a sign, I would take Mighty Strikes.
Yeah, that's funny that you bring it up. I think another thing you want to consider here too is token. I don't think we're picking it here, but I think fixing is very valuable in this format. The earlier you take it, the easier it is to potentially splash. However, this fixing doesn't help us in praxis necessarily. It would only help us splash something like Mighty Strike, so I don't think it's worth taking here. It's interesting that there's another Lethrai Hideaway. That's 2 Lethrai Hideaways in a row. I mean, basically, you're looking at 2 Lethrai Hideaways in a row, 2 Mighty Strikes in a row, because you don't really count the first pack because you're picking,
Right.
you opened it. But the fact that we've now seen 2 Lethrai Hideaways, 2 Mighty Strikes, I don't know if it tells us anything, but they are definitely powerful cards that are being passed to us. And Oni Forge Master to me is like maybe the second best 2-drop in the format behind Carradine Steward. Its ability to allow you to Voltron away the game. If a 4-cost 6/5 is good, then you could almost do the same thing with multiple Oni Forge Masters where you're just suiting up your Oni Forge Masters over and over again. I guess the knock against Oni Forge Master here is you're potentially, if you are paired with time, then there aren't as many weapons in time to help you renown Oni Forge Master. but it
Right.
could be too early to say anything like that. Honestly, if it were me, I'd probably pick Oni Forgemaster here. I think it's a solid 2-drop. It's very likely to make our deck. We want to play Siegebreaker really bad, and I don't think there's ever a deck where you're in fire where you're not playing Oni Forgemaster. So I would probably pick that before the Mighty Strikes, just because at the end of the day, we don't know if Mighty Strikes is going to pan out, whereas Forgemaster, we're pretty confident that we are going to play that card.
Yeah. The other thing that sort of in that explanation, it sort of not reminded me of, but made me think of is the last couple of drafts, I've had a lot of trouble getting enough 2-drops for me to be comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if people are picking Strangers much higher now, but that would make me lean towards Oni Forgemaster because the last couple decks I've had decks where I've had like 2 or 3 2-drops.
Oh gosh, yeah,
And
that's tough.
yeah. So, okay. So Oni Forgemaster.
Yeah, I think that's a great 2-drop for us.
In this pack, there's a Seraph's Beacon, an Asantha's Outrider, a Scorpion, an Arachnodon Egg, and I guess a Tumbling Sloth, though it's not really in a great colors for us.
So, one, obviously, with you naming off that many cards in the pack, this pack is pretty weak. There's not like a clear choice for us.
Right.
I think another card to consider is Court Mage. It's a very reasonable card. Pledge is a very good keyword. It helps you with consistency in your deck. So that's just something to keep in mind. I don't think it's necessarily the pick here. It might be. Just kind of depends what we want to do here. So I think the strongest, like at the end of the day, the cards that I would really consider here are probably Seraph's Beacon, Acantha's Outrider, Arachnodon Egg, and Court Mage. I don't love Arachnodon Egg. Like, yes, it's great on turn 1. You can have this really amazing turn 4 play where you not only, curve out the Arachnodon Egg and break it, but you also play a 4-drop, which can be backbreaking, especially if you're in Praxis where you've got big bodies lined up. But if you draw it at any other point in the game, a top decking an Arachnodon Egg late in the game really hurts you because there's no way you're going to find 3 more power, say if you're already on 7 power or something like that.
Right. Yeah, so I think I would lean towards Asantha's Outrider here, especially because I think Fire and Primal, the Skycrag colors, are kind of a good place to be.
Yep.
At least in my experience. So that's where I would lean.
Yeah, I think so too. The only reason I hesitate is because I think this is another thing I noticed from my drafts last month. I think I was overvaluing the Outrider. I think it's very good. Even if you don't have a relic, playing a 6-cost 3/3 flyer while it's a turn slow is still reasonable. But the fact that it still has Pledge on there and everything like that can make it a very easy turn 1 decision if you're going to Pledge Outrider or not. So I think it's totally reasonable to pick Outrider here. We're not married to this Temple Captain, so I don't think we need to force our way into Praxis with the Arachnodon Egg. So yeah, I think it's probably better here to take the Outrider or the Court Mage. And given that it's a 3/3 flyer versus a 2/5 vanilla dude, I think it's fine to take Outrider here.
And it's interesting because I might actually take Scorpion over Arachnodon Egg if that's the way we were going. But
yeah, there is something to be said for that. Scorpion does have a lot of synergy. It's more synergy with Primal than anything else because things like Parry and Ice Bow gain a lot more value when paired with a deadly unit. So
is Parry, is that what Parry does? Parry has the unit deal the damage?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Oh wow, I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, so it's a really good reason to be in a Legion base.
So this is I think a pack where your coaching is going to be helpful because I'm going to Be Gone and Carrington Steward are maybe my 2 favorite cards. And so one of my problems I have in this format is anytime I see them this late, I just think automatically that Shadow and Time are open.
Mm-hmm.
And that has not panned out very well for me.
Mm-hmm.
While I think most normal people would take Carnivorous Sauropod right here. And I'm always very nervous taking a 3-color card this early.
First thing I'll say...
And there's also a Fireheart Recruit,
right,
if I wanted to just be safe.
Yeah, I think Fireheart Recruit is very reasonable. First thing I'll say is I think you're probably too high on Begone. Yes, the card is good. It's good for fixing. It can be a tempo play. It can get rid of problematic weapons, but it is slow speed and it is taking up a slot in your deck. I think it is good, but it's a pretty replaceable effect. Let's put it that way. If you see cards like Frostwave, if you see cards like Maddening Whispers, Begone is just worse than both of those. Or even Flash Freeze in packs 2 and 3. So you're getting a very similar effect that you can probably get a higher impact effect on other cards. So I think you're probably too high on Begone at this point. I do agree with you. It's very interesting to see this late of a Keratin Steward. If we take it, we are then, we still want to play fire very heavily. So I think that should kind of be forefront in our mind when looking at this pack. And when you go into Stone Scar, as far as a tri-faction, you're looking at Windchest, which is... it's not terrible. It did get buffed after this last balance patch, but I'm trying to think back to our other packs and if we saw any other Shadow cards that would have said to us, hey, Shadow's going to be wide open the rest of this pack. I don't think we did. You can probably tell where I'm going with this, and I would probably stay disciplined. Carnivorous Sauropod, in the worst case scenario, is a 3/3 for 3. I'd say it's one of the better 7-drops. You always rather play this guy than, say, Dormant Sentinel or something like that in your deck. That's just kind of a vanilla 7/7. This guy is way more impactful, and as the game progresses, you get to higher levels of power, it's even better. Like, if you ever got to 11 power, holy cow, this guy's going to win you the game. I mean, he often wins you the game when you play him on 7. So, and then if you want to be super safe, just Fireheart Recruit. I don't think you can really go wrong with that card. It's got Pledge, it's got Quick Draw. I think what is a strike against this card is the 1 toughness. There are a lot of ping effects in this format at this point. And so I've definitely gone down on Fireheart Recruit over the life of this format because there are so many ways to just ping him for 1, and then this guy that you were relying on to continue to get damage in is no longer effective. So for me, I would probably pick Sauropod. I wouldn't take the first Keratin Steward as a strong enough signal to push us that direction, if that makes sense.
Yes, no, I agree. This is one of those things where when I'm drafting alone, I just fool myself often by immediately diving into Shadow in these situations instead of trying to think sort of more holistically. All right, so Carnivorous Sauropod it is. Yes. All right. So there's a token of honor and a conflagrate, and I would take the conflagrate here.
Yep, 100%.
Okay.
I agree with you. It's removal. It's in the color that we know we want to be in. We would love to get that fixing, but passing up removal. I'm sure you've heard of the BREAD acronym: bomb, removal, evasion. Some people say attack, defense. I don't know what the really right terms are at the end. But anyway, token is not a bomb over the removal of conflagrate. Amplify is incredible on this card.
All right, so conflagrate. So this is a little off topic, but since you didn't come from Magic, where did you learn about BREAD?
It was mostly from just reading about limited formats, reading the Eternal subreddit.
This next pack, pick 7, there's 2 pretty good time cards in Power Breach Sentinel and Arachnodon Egg, and then there's nothing in Fire or Primal, really.
Hmm.
And then there is an Unmoored Valkyrie or a Coastal Recruit, but I would take the Power Breach Sentinel. But that is also a card that I might be overvaluing a little bit.
No, I don't think so. I think this card's great. The fact that it takes the top power card off of your deck just helps you draw gas for the rest of the game, which is really good. And I'd say it's clearly the pick here. The other
Hmm.
thing to note is that there's no shadow here. So thank
Yes.
goodness we didn't take that Carradine Steward, because now we would be in an awkward spot. I mean, we would have got back on track in the last pack and taken Conflagrate, but this is a good focus point to see, okay, if I had taken the first card that I saw that signaled to me that this faction might be open, I might have ended up in a more awkward situation.
Yeah, and like I was saying, that is one of the things that it catches me in this format is I do find that there's a lot of weird random cards that appear that I consider signals that end up just being sort of noise. All right, so let's take the Power Breach Sentinel.
Ooh,
Oh
man.
man. I guess, do I take the Dune Painter?
I think so, absolutely. I almost always love getting an early Dune Painter because when you get cards like Bottoms Up, we already have two great Amplify cards with Conflagrate and Carnivorous Sauropod. So just adding Dune Painter on top of that, it has a lackluster body, but there's not anything else here that's like really calling our name. So I would definitely pick Dune Painter here. Maybe we play him, maybe we don't. But I think it's a very reasonable card when you have good Amplify cards for sure.
Yeah, and Dune Painter also shows, I think, another missing element in my game where, again, this is being like conservative and considering myself maybe slightly unlucky. I also shy away from sort of little synergies. So I've never actually played a Dune Painter in my deck.
Oh my gosh. I can remember two decks in particular where I've had Dune Painter, and one time I had Lethal with Shiny Finder, which was fantastic.
All right, so I opened up the next pack, and it looks like we're in a pretty good lane here because
Hmm.
there's a Fireheart Recruit, a Coastal Huntsman, and an Oni Forge Master. And I would take the Oni Forge Master again.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Don't really need to branch to the Coastal Huntsman. Just stay in the fire lane and see. We're kind of staying open. Like, we know we're going to be fire, but we don't know what our secondary color is going to be between time and primal yet. It's probably going to be time, but maybe it ends up being primal. It depends what we get in pack 2 and 3, I think.
Yeah, and these are the kind of drafts I feel the happiest and most comfortable. If I can go into pack 2 knowing the one color that I definitely am, then I feel like sort of the world is open to me
Hmm. Yeah.
after this. Yeah. All right, so this is a slightly more lackluster pack. So there's a Mesmerized Moth and an Oathkeeper's Hammer. I guess if fire's in our deck, then Mesmerized Moth becomes slightly better because you can put weapons on it.
Hmm.
But that is also a card that I've never played.
Oh, well, good news. We're probably going to play it today. I think this card is pretty good. It's especially good with cards like Acantha's Outrider that cares about relics because
Hmm.
you're playing a unit that makes a relic for you. So there's a nice little synergy there. We don't know if we're going to play the Outrider for sure, but like you said, there's plenty of good weapons in fire that we can get in packs 2 and 3 that make Moth more impactful. Yeah, it's not the most exciting body, but I don't think there's any reason for us to take Oathkeeper's Hammer over a card that's in our color and playable at this point.
All right. Okay, so Mesmerized Moth. Oh, another Fireheart Recruit.
Yeah, I think I agree. Just take the recruit.
And I'll put this in the pool, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Unearth the Past.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
So in your process, do you now take a second, like say even when you're not doing a video, what is your process now that you open pack 2?
So what I normally like to do is just kind of, if I didn't have a good sense while I was going through that first pack of kind of where I was landing, then I kind of like to review, okay, what do I have so far? Is there a particular color that I'm really incentivized to play? Do I have two colors like that? What's potentially my splash? What am I looking to fill in this next pack, basically? I think for us, it's pretty simple in the fact that we know we're fire. It seems like we're probably Praxis splashing Primal, but that could potentially change. But it seems like that's where we're going to be, is probably base Praxis. I generally don't do that thorough of a review after my first pack unless I really was just lost in the sauce and drafted something crazy and it was like all these different cards that don't really go together.
Okay.
But it is helpful to do that each pack and ask yourself, okay, what am I looking for? What do I need next? What's going to make my deck better, basically.
Yeah, well, based on this draft, I'm only drafting with you from now on.
It's funny you say that because I say the exact same things when I have done my drafting with Masters episodes and things like that, where it just feels like, I love having you here. I love having the conversation, but I think this deck is building itself on its own. You can go now. But please come back so we can do this again and I can have another great draft. So
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, in this one, there's our rare is a Parapet Sentry. So it seems like we should take that.
Yeah. Pack 1, we got a bomb fire card. Pack 2, we get a bomb fire card. What more do you want? So.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm. So on colors, there's the Stone Scar Maul, and then there is a Trailmaker.
Mm-hmm.
I think are the two cards that I would consider in contention.
Yeah. What are your thoughts between the two?
I'm very high on Trailmaker, and people have been recently I've been hearing people kind of trying to talk me down from how high I am on Trailmaker. So I think if I were here by myself, I would pick Trailmaker, especially seeing that I have four kind of high cost cards already this early. And Trailmaker helps you splash. It's a 2-drop. I've been having trouble getting 2-drops recently. So I think I would take the Trailmaker.
Yeah, I actually agree with your evaluation. Stone Scar Maul is very strong. It's a great piece of removal, can be a finisher. It is hard for me to pass it up, but I'm thinking, do we need this Trailmaker? Like you said, it's a 2-drop. It helps us fix. We didn't get any fixing in that first pack. So, do we need to value that fixing a little bit more highly? And like you said, I would say we have 2 6-drops at this point. I wouldn't really consider Outrider as a 6-drop.
Right.
And we aren't even sure if we're going to play that card. So honestly, this is a tough choice for me. And I think the more conservative pick is the Trailmaker. I think the greedier pick is the Stone Scar Maul because it's just a higher power level card. I would probably go the conservative line here just because it feels like we have other powerful cards that if we ramp up to them, if we're playing Siegebreaker turn 3, my goodness, the game is probably over. Power Breach on turn 5, anything like that. We're playing huge bodies ahead of curve, which our opponent can't deal with. So I would probably just take the Trailmaker here.
All right. Yeah, me too. Little less exciting. Nothing really jumps out to me in this pack. I've never played a Stone Powder Heretic, which is the only red card. The banner is not quite on color. So I guess I would pick the Iceberg Hailshrieker as the card that we're most likely to play, since Genev is a supported faction.
Hailshrieker is probably the worst of that cycle of 2-drops where you can pay 1 and do something because Tribute is no longer in the format, so Hailshrieker's value goes way down. Also, if we're thinking, I think we've really lined ourselves up to be base Praxis. So if we're picking Hail Shrieker, we're probably not going to play it unless we somehow really go off the rails and are very desperate for 2-drops. So that would be, it would be pretty concerning to me if we needed to play Hail Shrieker at the end of the day. I agree with you. I don't think there's anything, like, there's no reason to take the banner. I can't think of anything that screams at me and says, like, you should take the banner because you could potentially splash this card. Like, Bare Arms is pretty good, but I still don't think it probably fits into our deck. So I honestly would pick the Stone Powder Heretic here. Wears weapons very well. We get extra weapons from Oni Forge Master. If you pick up cards like Granite Acolyte, it plays very well with those. If you get a changey stick on this card, it can really end a game very quickly because you're dealing 6 in the air every turn. So even though you haven't played this card, I think it's probably worth taking here just because everything else is pretty underwhelming for us.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I had the same line of thinking, but then would have ended up with the Iceberg Hail Shrieker because I would say this is my natural instincts. Again, this is not based on playing the card, but looking at the card, I just think, man, if I'm playing this as my 5-drop, something has gone really wrong with the draft.
Yeah.
And if something went really wrong with the draft, I would rather have, if I didn't have enough 2s, even though it's wouldn't be like the easiest to cast onto, it just would make me feel more comfortable. But let's go with the Stone Powder Heretic. I'm here to learn.
Yeah, I think the other thing about Heretic in this situation is that you've got plenty of, like, he has a lot of synergy with what we're potentially doing. Say you're in a racing situation against your opponent, they're A-spacing for setting up lethal for the next turn, and you've got Mighty Strikes or something. So you can pre-combat Mighty Strikes and just have this huge Stone Powder Heretic hit because then his attack with the Mighty Strikes buff gets doubled and they're probably dead at that point if you're in that racing situation. So, yeah, I think it has more synergy with the deck than the Hail Shrieker would.
Okay, well, we have this choice again. The only real cards that are on color for us are Iceberg Hail Shrieker and then maybe a Cryptic Etchings. The one thing that I would be noticing is that there's been a couple strong shadow cards past the last couple packs. There was the 3/1 deadly gun last pack, and
Hair Trigger Pistol.
Yeah, and then the pack before that, there was a Dark Return, and there's another Dark Return here.
Yeah, this is an interesting point. I still think we're steering clear of Iceberg Hail Shrieker. So really, I would say your pick is between Dark Return and Cryptic Etchings. So this is potentially that spot where you could think about splashing for the 4th color. Once again, we don't have the fixing to do that right now, but the question you're asking yourself is, with Cryptic Etchings, do I want to play this relic? The only thing it potentially synergizes with right now is Acantha's Outrider, which is not bad because you can go turn 2 Etchings, turn 3 Outrider, potentially, if we get the fixing for that. Or would I rather take Dark Return, potentially be in a spot where I'm recurring my most powerful unit, maybe that's Sentry to take care of a flyer, Power Breach Sentinel, Siege Breaker, whatever it is, to potentially take over the game late. I'm trying to think if there are other cards in Praxis that care about relics. I guess Parapet Sentry itself cares about a relic, right?
+2/+2 while you have a relic. Yeah, and there's the really good one, the 1/1 that's like +6/+6 or whatever.
Oh yeah, the Monolith Guardian. Yep, that's another one. You've also got Seasoned Spelunker.
It turns into a 5/5, and then there's the one cost that turns into a 3/3.
Yeah, so maybe that is powerful enough that we're willing to take the less powerful card that keeps us in our colors and doesn't get us venturing off the path too far. But your point does stand that we've seen some decent shadow cards. once again, for those that don't know, the first pack and the fourth pack are coming from the same person. The second pack and the third pack are coming from the same person. So I would say you can't read too far into signals until usually the fourth or fifth pick of a pack. So
Right.
given that this pack is from somebody new, I don't know if we can draw conclusions yet.
The one thing is they did pick a common over Dark Return.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
At the end of the day, it is your draft. If you want to pick Dark Return, I wouldn't fault you for it. Like I said, you're getting a higher power level. There is potential that we get the fixing to
yeah.
play the Dark Return.
The only problem is I just feel like we're so likely to see another Cryptic Etchings.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Okay, I'm just for science, I'm going to take the Dark Return, and maybe this will come and haunt me. And this will prove why I need this coaching.
Sentinels are alive.
Yeah, so I really like Frontline Cyclops. We have a lot of 6s. I also like Ageless Sentinel, but the thing that scares me a little bit about Ageless Sentinel is that all of our big fire cards, or Siegebreaker and Parapet Sentry, are both double.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I also want a double 4, but I don't know if I want all my cards to be 6 cost either.
Yeah, both are valid points. I would probably lean towards Ageless Sentinel here. We kind of talked about in that last pack how a lot of our early drops are not good blockers. Like Oni Forge Master is going to trade with a Stranger. I mean, we don't want it to, but at the end of the day, it's a 2/2 if we don't renown it. Trailmaker, you're never blocking with that. Fireheart Recruit, you don't want to block with that. So, and you bring up the point that we have multiple 6-drops already. Looking at our curve, we only have one 4-drop. So it is a little early to think about curve consideration too much, but if you're in a streamline 2-faction deck, I don't think you need to be too worried about double faction cards, which it seems like that's where we're going. So I would probably take Ageless Sentinel here, mainly because of us having other 6-drops at this point that I think are more powerful than Frontline Cyclops. I feel like Cyclops is a step below. It's definitely a step below Power Breed Sentinel. I don't know how I feel about it compared to Temple Captain.
Yeah, I guess like I said, the only thing I'm nervous about is just wondering so you don't mind having at 4 a double time and a double fire card as much.
Yeah, no, because I think we're pretty likely to end up in a pretty tight 2-faction deck, it seems like. So I'm not too worried about having double influence for both on 4.
All right, so Ageless Sentinel it is.
There's that Cryptic Etchings.
Yeah, another Ageless Sentinel. There's the Storm Glider and a Healer's Cloak and a Recogulator. So I guess I would take an Ageless Sentinel here.
Healer's Cloak is honestly not bad. I don't know if it's what we want to be taking here. Like, there are definitely better weapons in fire that we rather see, like Ruination Sledge and Welding Torch, but we haven't seen those yet. So I think it's fine to just take Ageless Sentinel here.
Okay.
Man, we would have some crazy synergy if we saw like Ancient Defenses or something like that right now.
So there's a Grenadindrone and a Skycrag banner, and I think I would take the banner here.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect time to take banner. Grenadindrone is fine and serviceable. We do still need 1 and 2 drops. I basically consider my 1 drops 2 drops.
Yeah.
Like, we only have 3 at the moment, but we still have multiple packs to go through. It's really interesting that we haven't seen a Stranger so far. It's interesting that we haven't seen the Welding Torches or the Ruination Sledges yet, because it seems like we are still in the right faction area. Like, we've gotten lots of time cards, we've gotten good fire cards, but I think it's totally reasonable to take banner here.
Yeah, I think this second person in pack 2 and 3 is also in fire, and so we're not going to get a lot of fire cards.
It does seem that way. Are you sighing about the Amethyst Acolyte?
Oh yeah, it's
calling your
That's
name.
another one of my siren calls. Yeah. So it's I guess between that spec pick or a predator's instinct, which we have a lot of beefy guys that could make use of the predator's instinct, I guess.
Yeah, I think Predator's Instinct is fantastic for us. I mean, we're gonna be this big-bodied Praxis deck, and beyond the potential removal you can get in fire, there's not a whole lot in time. So I'm super happy to see Instinct. If we do get any bounce effects, the Predator's Instinct gets even better. So yeah, I would take Predator's Instinct here.
Okay.
I don't think there's any reason to speculate on the Acolyte since we don't have the fixing for it really at this point.
Right. All right, and there's a magma javelin.
Yep. Yeah. Ooh.
And and then I guess the Elysian Stranger, right?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we want. Fixing for time and our
It's funny, color. I first saw it and I was like, oh, there's no fire in it. It can't be. But no, that's exactly where we want to be. I'm probably not playing either of these, but I'll take a Jack's Knife just in case. And
yeah,
a
picked for Shiftstone there.
Oh, man. Our rares. And there's a Pillar of Amar.
Yeah.
So, yeesh, I actually don't know. Is this a close one for you, or is there a clear pick?
I think Pillar of Amar is the clear pick.
Okay.
Champion, you were concerned about getting time, fire on 4. Think about time on 3 or fire on 3. And I think that makes it a little bit more clear on why Pillar, triple time, hard to cast, 7 drop, but bomb level wins you the game.
Yeah, I don't know. Mine always gets silenced, but
honestly, we might, given how the deck looks right now, we might not even get to the level of playing Pillar of Amar, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay, Pillar of Amar. Okay, well, there's a Rakano Outlaw, right? Or do you take a banner here? Outlaw is such a good 2-drop.
Yep. Yeah, I think Outlaw is too good to pass. If, say, this was like Grenarender, or if it was something like that, I would think more about the banner pick here, but we still need 2-drops. Rakano Outlaw can just win you the game, getting War Cries on the right thing, and it's hard to deal with.
Yeah, and right now the only primal card really that really set on playing is Carnivorous Sauropod.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so Rakano Outlaw. Okay. There's a Combustion Cell for Shiftstone. The banners aren't great. There's a jump kick if we are in Primal, and I don't know, is Infinite Hourglass worth a card?
It might be here. We have the Relic Synergy for Parapet Sentry, potentially Acantha's Outrider, allows our big guys to play offense and defense. I think I would play Hourglass before I play Combustion Cell.
Yeah.
Other cards to potentially think about here would be like Meditation. There's the Micro Synergy with Predator's Instinct there. Or potentially, buying back your Carnivorous Sauropod to amplify it again. I think these are all very niche cases. Honestly, we wouldn't want to... I think I would probably play Hourglass before I play Meditation, just for the ability to play offense and defense and the small synergy with Parapet Sentry.
Yeah, Meditation is one of those cards where I'm always happy when my opponent plays that card.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's card disadvantage at the end of the day, so it's not great. What is this pack?
Yeah, this is following my Dark Return spec. Yeah, so there's nothing that I'm very excited about. I mean, I don't know if I really want to be playing Wisdom of the Elders at Primal. So I guess if I want to continue to spec on Shadow, I could take Surgeon Saw or just an Argenport Stranger, I guess would be what I would lean towards.
Yeah, Wisdom, even if you're in Primal, I think that card is still not great in draft just because you're spending time drawing cards when you should be affecting the board. I think if you did want to speculate on Shadow here, I would probably take the Argenport Stranger. We still need 2 drops, and this means we could potentially play this Dark Return. Surgeon Saw is
That's
very
true.
powerful, can win the game, but I guess I would lean towards just taking the Argenport Stranger.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, because it does fix for the Dark Return if we do end up going that route. Oh,
Got some more
okay.
fixing.
Yeah, more fixing for this. See, I told you, someone wants us to play Dark Return. Okay, so I guess, do we take another Stranger? That puts us at 7 2-drops, I think.
Yeah,
1,
we could
2,
take
3,
this
4, 5,
Stranger.
6.
7 2-drops is quite a few. So I
Yeah,
guess I would lean towards Xenon Stranger just because at the very least, it's a half on color Stranger for us if we don't play Dark Return, whereas the Argenport Stranger is nothing for us if we don't play Dark Return.
Yeah, the only thing that would make me lean towards Xenon Banner is we have like 17 or 18 units already that are all pretty reasonable. So, a banner is kind of like a free card to, I mean, if we're splashing the Dark Return, I guess.
Right, if we're playing the Dark Return. That's why I guess I'd lean towards the Xenon Stranger because it's an upgrade to our Argenport Stranger if we don't end up playing the Dark Return.
Okay, all right, so I'll take the Xenon Stranger here. Another Dark Return, a Seek Power, Rally, and an Ageless Sentinel.
Do we take a second Dark Return? Or do we just take Seek Power and be able to play whatever we want to play?
Yeah.
I think my gut leans towards the Seek Power, but I think you can tell I'm pretty risk averse to this 4th color we're potentially splashing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, no, we can do that. We just have some really good units. The Dark Return.
The thing about Dark Return is you don't want this card to show up early. If you have 2 of them, you're more likely to see that card early in the game, where it's going to sit in your hand for a while before you really use it. I think the best splash cards tend to be impactful throughout the game, whether it's early or late.
No, that's true.
And the Seek Power will just help you play everything.
Yeah. Yeah, again, this is to what I consider my bad drawing luck. Unless I have 2 of something, I don't ever believe that I'll ever draw it. So I always feel a lot more comfortable when I have 2 of something. But here I would just take the Cryptic Etchings finally.
Yep. Yeah, I think the universe is telling us you're going to play Cryptic Etchings.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have the option to.
Yeah. Okay. Nothing exciting, so I guess a Jump Kick.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
So would you put this in deck or pool?
I would just put it in the pool.
Okay.
I think it's likely in a spot where we're not going to play it.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm in those situations, I even like to just take a card that I know I'm not going to play so I don't have to make that hard decision later.
Right.
Like when I know I have a ton of playables, like I might just pick Kopesh there just so I was like, well, I'm not playing this card.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Okay, so like this is the same kind of thing. Okay. Nothing. I guess we could put a Pyro Adept. I don't know if...
Yeah, we might play it.
Okay.
Probably not, but we might.
Oh, we can... Our double splash here.
Yeah, double splash banner. It's not bad.
Okay.
One thing I often do in my videos, and I think this is a good just kind of habit to instill in yourself, is when you get to pack 4, you do a quick unit count, just see where you're at. Because in pack 4, you're thinking about, what do I need to finalize the deck? Are there holes in my curve that I need to fill, things like that. So I like to do a quick unit count at the start of pack 4 before I make any picks or anything like that.
No, that's good to hear, because that's actually, it's also that kind of mechanical process of drafting that I feel like I need help with, and hearing how different people kind of go through the packs or when they stop to take inventory, is all very interesting and helpful for me because it's stuff that I tend not to do because it's kind of like hard to do. You know what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
it feels more like work than quickly picking picking cards.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So units wise, we have 8 2 drops.
Hmm.
We have 4 3 drops. So that's 12, 3 4 drops. So that's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And yeah, I feel like I would be happy to submit this deck as is almost.
Uh-huh.
So unit wise, I mean, I feel like the curve is pretty good. I guess, yeah, the curve is pretty good. I don't actually, you looking at this deck, where would you, and I can scroll up or down as you need me to. What are there any holes or things that you're thinking need fixing as far as units go?
No, not really. I think we have plenty of units now, so that probably means we're lacking in other areas, whether it's weapons or interaction with our opponent. So that's
Hmm.
probably what we want to be looking for in this pack to help push us over the edge. Because we're at 21 units, there are probably some units in there that we're happy to cut, but I don't think there's anything too big or glaring that's saying to me like, oh my gosh, I never want to play this card in my deck because it's so weak. Like most of our units are very reasonable cards, I would say.
Yes.
So really it's just about finding the interaction that we potentially will need with our opponent or find things that help further our strategy, whether it's renown enablers or ramping us or something like that essentially.
Hmm. So that leads us to this pack where nothing really excites me in this pack actually. I don't really I don't I don't really like the Flame Tail Whip, and it's another card that I've never really played. There's the Arachnodon Egg, which we didn't really pick up any of the good time relic payoffs in the last pack. You know, there's none of those cards that buff themselves. And so I guess there's the Sandcrawler, which could, if we don't play the Asantha's Outrider, replace the Mesmerized Moth. But nothing really excites me in this pack.
Yeah, yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think you correctly identified the three cards we should be looking at between Flametail Whip, Arachnodon Egg, and Sandcrawler. I think if you take Sandcrawler, you're just saying you're going to upgrade one of your 3 drops at this point because we don't need more, I don't think. And I think you're probably selling Moth short still. So I don't think Sandcrawler is probably the right pick.
Okay.
Arachnodon Egg has it's technically going to be another unit for us, but there is the minor relic synergy with Parapet Sentry and Acantha's Outrider if we decide to play that. And I'm kind of looking at Flametail Whip here as a potential early aggressive card for us, where we're playing
Hmm.
this on Oni Forge Master to trigger Renown and have this turn where we're hitting for 6 on turn 3. Obviously, that's a very ideal situation. Even putting the Flametail Whip on Mesmerized Moth or Acantha's Outrider, I think may be reasonable. We don't have any way we can use those extra bodies if they can't attack, so that kind of stinks. But I guess at the same time, if that's how you're looking at this card, then it's basically Grandfather's Axe, but worse, which
Right.
is not
Which
good.
is, yeah, which is how I look at the card.
Yeah.
But, but
So
yeah.
if you think about it that way, maybe it just means that Arachnodon Egg is the pick here.
Hmm.
Is kind of how I would sniff this one out because yeah, I don't think Flametail Whip is great. I guess super late game you can play a unit and give it charge and play 3/1/1s in a turn, but you know, hopefully we've won the game by that point. So,
Right.
I think I would just lean towards Arachnodon Egg here, but I don't know if we'll end up playing it.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
a pretty unexciting pack.
I actually liked, this is helpful and I think a thing that I struggle with Again, this is maybe too much to say about this pack because it is an unexciting pack, but I would find myself not really thinking about the number of 3 drops I have and how Sandcrawler fits in, but just be like, oh, Sandcrawler is a playable 3 drop, and just pick it, even though I might not play it, as compared to Arachnodon Egg. Even though I also might not play it, it's a unique effect. So maybe it's worth just picking, because neither of them you're likely to play. So maybe picking the unique one is sort of the better way to go.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was anyway, that was helpful the way you kind of explained that.
Well, good. Thanks.
Okay. Well, see, I wish they would spread these out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, where were these cards last pack, right?
Yeah. Okay. So
this is an interesting pick, though.
Yeah. There's a Porcelain Mask, a Locust, and a Power Breach Sentinel. And I guess I would take the Locust, even though we have a lot of 2 drops. It could definitely replace probably one of the Strangers at the very least, or the Pyro Adept.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any weapons yet, but it can hold a weapon. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I've been nervous recently to take too many big guys. So even though I would love a second Power Breach Sentinel, I don't know if that's a smart way to go.
That's definitely a valid concern. So I think there's maybe 2 ways to think about this pick. Maybe 3 ways. I mean, there's probably many ways to think about this pick. But the ones that I'm thinking of here, I agree with your evaluation of Locust. Of it can easily replace one of our guys. It could even replace Pyre Adept, I think, just fine, and we wouldn't bat an eyelash. Like a 2/2 flyer for 2 is great when most of the format is playing a 2/2 flyer for 3 in Flickerling at the bottom of the column. Power Breach Sentinel, if you take it, are you replace, this is how I would think about Power Breach Sentinel in this situation. Are you thinking about replacing the Acantha's Outrider? Are you potentially getting rid of Temple Captain in this situation? Power Breach Sentinel does have a lot more synergy with Pillar of Amar. Temple Captain has decent synergy there. Do we even need Acantha's Outrider to win the game for us?
I don't think so.
So it could be that Power Breach Sentinel just is another 6-drop for us. Could be that we end up cutting it anyway. The other argument I have in this pack is for Porcelain Mask. It gives us some early interaction with our opponent. Silencing something early in the game can help you. We have a lot of big bodies, so giving them all Overwhelm is not bad either. So I don't think this is an easy pick. I would say if we had more weapons, it would be Slam Dunk Locust. Like if we had Granite Acolytes and things like that, then
Right.
This would be Locust all day because that can just win games on its own. It still can. It's just we don't have the weapons that, help further that strategy. So maybe that means you go with the more synergistic Power Breach Sentinel, but then I think it's potentially that you're getting rid of something else at that point. So it's kind of a hard call to make. And like I said, when we started this pack, we said we needed more interaction, more ways to deal with our opponent rather than just playing big units and hoping they stick. And Porcelain Mask, at least a little bit, helps further that plan. And it is another relic to help with Parapet Century and Outrider if we decide to play it. But so I'm honestly kind of torn in this situation. Like we literally have 0 renown, right? I guess Predator's Instinct. Is that like our only renown trigger at the moment?
Yes. Yes.
For the Oni Forge Masters.
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking, how can we get those weapons off of the Oni Forge Master so that we can then slap them on Locust or slap them on Mesmerized Moth, to help win in the air rather than just relying on a big ground force.
The interesting thing about that is I feel like that can go both ways. Like if we end up with the only way to trigger Renown on Oni Forge Master, wouldn't you rather just have a Locust?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that's reason enough that I don't think I've ever said this before, but that we might think about not playing Oni Forge Master.
Yeah, this is a tricky pick.
So really we're kind of thinking about do we need the removal, the interaction of Porcelain Mask, or do we need just a better 2-drop? Are we upgrading a 2-drop slot? Locust is also pretty good with Temple Captain. Making a 3/3 flyer for 2 is nice. Mask, I mean, I think we only have 3 forms of interaction at the moment with Magma Javelin, Conflagrate, and Predator's Instinct, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's true.
Yes, we likely have the bigger force, and it's going to be up to our opponent to deal with our units because they're just going to be bigger than what he has. So maybe the interaction isn't that important. I think I would just take Locust here.
Okay.
As hard as, like, this is definitely a tough pick.
Yeah.
I think there are merits to all 3 picks here, and I will admit that it may be wrong, but I think I would take it here just because the fact that these Oni Forge Masters aren't like slam dunks for us is pretty bizarre.
The other question is, so I took the Santa's Outrider out here, and then I feel like the next one to go could be the Stone Powder Heretic. Is 1 5-drop, 3/6, and a 7? Is that too many? Would that?
Okay, so yeah, let's just do this for exercise. Take out the Stone Powder Heretic and do a quick unit count. Let's even take out, I don't know, I'd probably cut Pyrodept before I cut Oni Forge Master. And maybe you cut Argentport Stranger? I don't know.
Yeah.
You'd probably cut another 2-drop, right?
Yeah, probably. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're at 7 right now.
Okay. So let's just say we're at 6 and then look at where we're at for the rest of the units.
Okay, so 6 2-drops, 4 3-drops, so that's 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
So in that scenario, you're a little lighter on units. Like maybe you play one more. Probably not a 2-drop. Just because we have quite a few. But then do you want another 6-drop?
Yeah, I guess this is where I'm like relying on your experience more than just like what your sense of how top heavy we would want a deck to be.
I mean, given that we're not going to be aggressive, I think it's fine to take Power Breach Sentinel here. Like, we're not going to end a game before turn 5 or something like that because we don't have those Granite Acolytes. We don't have those Ruination Sledges to just push tons of damage early on in the game. So I actually think it's pretty reasonable to pick Power Breach Sentinel here over the Locust because it really does synergize super well with the Pillar of Amara as well. And it's just a great body.
Okay, so are we doing it? Power Breach Sentinel?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Rip off that Band-Aid before we change our mind again.
How many relics do we have?
3?
Yeah.
4? Magma Javelin, Mesmerized Moth, Infinite Hourglass, Cryptic Etchings, and Arachnodon Egg. So, you know, some of those aren't very permanent, but holy cow, Bizarre Stampede.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a finisher. Think about it as a one-time Xenon Obelisk, and, you know, if you have Infinite Hourglass and Cryptic Etchings out, they're not going anywhere. Or the Bobble, you're getting plus. So best case scenario, you're probably getting +3/+3 with that. And your other option here is probably Power Breach Sentinel.
Or another Forge Master, which we...
Yeah, which I don't think either is great for us. I guess the other thing to consider is how serious we are about splashing Dark Return.
Right.
Because you could take Token of Ambition here. I don't think you ever take Awaken the Ages. So I would probably take Token here.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
Wow.
Oh. Do we take a display?
It is
with both our splashes.
It is really strong. The other option is just to take good fixing in either Begone or Token. You know, Begone is interaction for us. It has the small synergy with Predator's Instinct, or buying back Sauropod, or buying back Parapet Sentry to deal with a flyer.
Yeah, and we don't have a ton of ways to deal with flyers either. I mean, not that it does, but it can help deal with a weaponed up flyer, at least
Yep.
slow them down.
Yeah, I mean, and it can buy that Parapet Sentry back to deal 3 damage to a flyer again, so I think it's reasonable to take Be Gone here. I think that solidifies that you'll play Dark Return rather than taking Display of Knowledge, which is more likely to be dead in your hand. And it's probably filling a similar role because I think Display, you're probably wanting to put their unit on the bottom of the deck to get rid of a problematic unit with a weapon. The quick draw mode is very good too, but I think just taking Be Gone and saying, yes, I'm going to play this Dark Return is fine.
Okay. Right. So Be Gone. I guess I would just take the token here again. I know there's 2 fire cards, but neither of them are very exciting for our deck, I think.
Yep, exactly. We don't have a way that we're going to renown the Lazy Fire main, and Surveiller is fine, but we're not doing anything special with it. So yeah, it's just a token. What's your thoughts here?
There's the Sirocco Glider. There's another Be Gone, but I know you don't like 2 of them. And then there's the token to help us splash our shadow. I know the Sirocco Gliders, I guess that could solve our flying problem, so maybe it is worth replacing or adding another 4th drop for that.
Yeah, I think it's worth taking the Sirocco Glider here. We have, 3 or 4 playable relics, so
Yeah.
I think it's totally reasonable to pick that here. I think we're doing pretty good on the shadow sources at this point too, because we've got Found Banner, we've got Token of Ambition, we've got Trailmaker, and we've got Be Gone. So that's 4 sources already. And you have Xenon Stranger. So I don't think we're even going to play a Shadow Sigil for just 1 shadow card because we already have 5 sources or something like that. So yeah, I think Sirocco Glider makes sense here.
All right. So nothing exciting here. I'll add a Spitfire to the pool.
Yeah, sure.
There's, I guess, a good token.
Yep, yeah, I would definitely take the token here. Good fixing.
So I guess we'll take that. Glyph Scholar for the Shiftstone.
Yeah.
A lot of Be Gones coming up here.
Yeah, it is a lot of Be Gones. Temple Artisan does have some good synergy with Power Breach Sentinel.
That's true. I don't know if I'd ever play it, but I'll pick it.
It is a pledge card too.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Well, I think this seems like a pretty good deck.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
It's going to be... Alright, so we're already at 29.
Yeah, so do you take all your power out to make it easier to...
I do. I'm not smart enough to think with -5 in my head all the time.
Yeah. We're at 29 cards right now, with one of them being a Seek Power.
Mm-hmm.
So with this high of a curve, or I guess with Pillar of Amara, are you thinking 17 power plus a Seek, or...
Yeah, that's where I would land. There's potentially an argument to go even 19, but I almost never go 19, especially when you've got the Power Breach Sentinels to go find you power. You've got the Trailmakers to ramp you. So I think just cutting 1 card will be pretty happy.
Okay.
That is assuming you don't want to play, Temple Artisan? Or the Acantha's Outrider is an option too, I would say.
Yeah, you're right.
I would just have to think about how good our Primal Fixing is. A little bit, but...
oh, right. I could go to that screen if you'd like.
So you've got like 7 sources already?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Okay. Well, that at least gives us something to think about. But I think basically all our cuts are coming from units at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only other option, I think, is if we feel like we have enough relic synergy to play about cryptic etchings, I guess it would be the weakest of the relics.
Yeah, I would probably play it just because it allows us to filter our draws.
Yeah.
Because I think we are pretty likely to get to very high levels of power with this deck, so it gives us a way to use our power when we have nothing else to do.
Mm-hmm.
Which, late in the game, if your opponent's top decking power and you're putting your power on bottom so you can find something else, I mean, yes, niche case, hopefully it doesn't come to that, but I still think it's better than the 20th unit or something like that.
Right.
All right, so we need 3 cuts.
Yes.
I don't think we're cutting any of the spells or attachments. So we go back to the units. We have 7 2-drops. I think they're all fine. I don't think we need to cut anything there. Our 3-drops, I'm wondering about Dune Painter. It's only good with Conflagrate and Sourpod. Other than that, it's not doing anything for us. It's a 2/2.
Right.
So I'm not super excited about it. The card that I get most excited about with Dune Painter is Bottoms Up.
Okay. I see. I can see that.
And then I would be looking at the 4-drop slot and maybe the 6-drop slot. Like looking at your curve, those are the 2 spots where I'm like, okay, maybe we have too much going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and part of it is whether you want to view a Santa's Outrider as a 3-drop or a 6-drop.
True. And that all depends on our ability to find a relic. We only have 3, maybe 4 that we could play before we want to play a Cantha's Outrider on 3. So, I mean, that's pretty good. I don't think those numbers are bad by any means, but, do I necessarily want to cut Temple Captain or my Power Breach Sentinels to lower the 6-drop count potentially? And do I feel like I need the flyer to win the games? I don't think so. So I guess I would cut Outrider personally.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts?
I think before I got to Outrider, I would cut Temple Artisan, but yeah, I guess that would be the next place I would look because I feel like I guess it does synergize with Power Breach Sentinel, but it also feels like my main goal in this deck is to stay alive till I get to Power Breach Sentinel and Pillar of Amar, and Temple Artisan does not help in that goal.
It's a good point. Yeah, I think that is a reasonable point because when I was looking at the 4-drops, I was thinking, oh, do we maybe cut one of these Ageless Sentinels because Sirocco Glider is essentially the same card with potential upside, and we rather just have Temple Artisan, which with Temple Captain and Power Breach Sentinel could be a 9/9 or a 6/6 swinging in or something like that. So that's kind of where I was at on it, but I do see the argument for just cutting Temple Artisan to play more defensive bodies to make sure that we get to our late game. It sounds like we're in agreement on cutting the Outrider, and then the 4-drop is, I guess what I like about Temple Artisan, beyond the body, is it has the ability to pledge to give us that more consistency to get to those higher levels of power.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that quite a bit. And I just feel like having 2 Ageless Sentinels and the Sirocco Glider, they're all super similar.
Right.
And they do their job well, but I don't know.
I can see your point. It's maybe not a cut that I would ever make, but I'm here to learn, and it does make our power a little bit easier because we're cutting one of our double 4-cost double time cards. So.
Yeah. And you do have to remember also that assuming we see a Rakdodon egg on 1, obviously best case scenario, we're getting another 4/4 on turn 4, which we can then play the same turn we're playing that Ageless Sentinel or that Temple Artisan or whatever it is. So we have another 4-drop in that slot essentially.
Right. All right. So I did it. I cut the Ageless Sentinel, and so I think we are good on the number of cards, right?
Yeah. Let's get the power added.
Okay. Oh, look, and we conveniently already did that. So we should play all of these, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, there's not one that's bad for us.
Okay. And then add power.
At least the deck builder is smart enough to know that we don't need 3 Primal Sigils and 3 Shadow Sigils. I feel like that's what it always gives me.
Really? So, let's see. I guess the only question is whether we need to add some more fire or not, right?
Yep. Yeah, basically.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That seems really low.
Yeah, honestly, I would cut the primal and the shadow sigil just to play fire sigils.
Okay.
Because right now we have 5 primal. So we're pretty likely to find that before turn 7. Actually, 6 primal with Trailmaker. Because you've got Skycrag Banner, you've got Feln Banner, you've got Token of Honor, you've got Token of Knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
you've got Elysian Stranger, and you've got Trailmaker. So that's 6 sources. For the Shadow, you have Feln Banner, you have Token of Ambition, you have Token of Knowledge, you have Begone, you have Trailmaker, you have Xenon Stranger, you have Argenport Stranger. So you have 7 sources there. So I see no reason to, play the extra sigils to add 1 additional for each when you're only playing 1 card for both. And you've got, normally how I look at it is for 1 card, I usually want 3 sources to be
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with the splash, and we're well above that for both.
So should I put more fire sigils in then?
So that's a good
Because
question. Yeah.
because 2 of the strangers are time also,
Mm-hmm.
and more of our 2-drops are fire than time.
Yeah, so let's see. We've got 12 time at the moment, it looks like.
What are we counting? Yeah. So 1 here,
Mm-hmm.
9, 10, 11, 12.
13 with Trailmaker.
While for fire, we just have 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, so I could see the argument to go down 1 time and up a fire. Only thing against that is the Pillar of Amar, but I feel pretty confident in our ability to get to 3 time before 7, or really 8.
Okay. Yeah, that would make me feel better. All right. Are we good? We like this deck?
Yeah. Any closing thoughts about the deck, or do you think this is where you would have ended up had we not been drafting together?
I mean, I think it would probably be close. I think some of the details might have been off. And yeah, and I wonder if I would have done something like cut cryptic etchings and just played more units and not really paid attention to the relic synergy. Would be, I think, the things that my natural tendencies would lead me towards.
Mm-hmm.
But, fire was just so open in that first pack. And then so I feel like this draft a little bit drafted itself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think we got some really easy bombs to take, and then as time went on, it got a little bit more complicated, but not
Yeah.
super complicated. But yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned maybe not play cryptic etchings and instead just play the 20th unit and just ignore the potential synergy with Sirocco Glider and Parapet Sentry. So how do you feel about the deck? Do you think it'll do well?
Yeah, I mean, I my last 2 or 3 decks have been so bad that this looks a lot better than that. I mean, I am a little worried that we didn't find. I mean, I'm shocked because I feel like fire weapons always show up late. We didn't get any weapons. So I think that is the main problem with the deck, and there's not a ton of interaction.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're exactly right on that. We would have loved to pick up a welding torch or even just a ruination sledge or something like that, but I feel pretty good about this deck's ability to win games just with Power Breed Sentinel and Pillar of Amar. I think it has enough interaction between Parapet Sentry, Be Gone, Magma Javelin, Predator's Instinct, and Conflagrate
Right.
to stop our opponent from doing things that we don't like. And I feel like if their plan is to win in the air, they're going to need some really big bodies to stall us on the ground, because generally, like 5 health is usually the biggest butt you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And this deck honestly can just mow right through that with cards like Siege Breaker, Parapet Sentry when it's buffed, Power Breach Sentinel, Temple Captain, Pillar of Amar, and the Sentinels that Pillar spawns. So yeah, I feel pretty good about this deck.
Cool.
Just wanted to close out this drafting and deck building portion of our very first Coaching Towards Masters episode by saying thank you for sticking around till the end. I know this was a long one. Hopefully you gleaned some helpful information during the drafting and deck building portion. Once again, if you thought that you might benefit from this personalized one-on-one coaching, I'll put my contact information on the screen, so if you're interested, you can reach out for coaching rates. Next, what'll happen is we'll go into the games video, so I hope you'll join me in the next video.